I know it still seems a long way away at the moment, but it will not be long until the British and Irish Lions tour comes around next year. Welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be naming my Matchday 23 for the first test. It is going to change over the coming months. It will change after the Six Nations, and I'll continue to try and do these videos in the build-up to that Lions tour and to that first test. But sitting here, right now, in December, at the end of 2024, what would be my Matchday 23? That's what I'm going to go through. I'm sure loads of you will have your opinion on this. Loads of you will disagree with a lot of my selections. Head to the comment section if that is the case. Let me know, what would your Matchday 23 be? And what are the big ones that I've gone for that you massively disagree with? It's all good fun. It's all good-natured. A lot of different opinions of this sort of thing. So let me know. Whilst you're here as well, like the video, and I would love it if you hit that subscribe button and stay subscribed to the channel. Okay, so a couple of ground rules to clear up first of all. I'm picking this based upon form, but also presuming everyone is going to be fit for that first test, which is contradicting myself slightly, but some of my selections, that kind of explains the reason for them. The other couple of big things that Andy Farrell is going to have to consider here is, does he select players based in France? Jack Willis, for example. You could make a case that Jack Willis is the best 7 in the world at the moment, even though he's not playing international rugby. He has been absolutely elite for Toulouse in the big games we've seen from them this year, in the Champions Cup final, in the top 14 final. So someone like that, him, and also I suppose the other one, and one of the really interesting areas of selection is going to be Owen Farrell and whether Andy Farrell picks him or not. And that whole dynamic of him being his son, Farrell isn't going to care that he's his son, but in terms of the quality of player he is, what he could bring to the team, I'll get into it when I get onto fly half, but that is something else that I think is going to be a story to keep an eye on and will rumble and rumble on. Let me get into it though. So my Matchday 23, starting in the front row, these are the names that I've gone with. Andrew Porter, for me, is an absolute lock on the loose head side. He's comfortably the best option the Lions have available to them. He's comfortably the best, I think, out of all of those, well, Wales, England, Scotland, Ireland. I was about to say the Six Nations teams, but I suppose France have some decent loose heads. But for me, he is locked on. I don't think there's too much debate there. I'll get to my bench in a little while. I suppose what are the other names involved? Ellis Genge, Pierre Schoeman, you could mention as well, but for me, it's Andrew Porter, he starts. Zander Fagerson on the tight head. I've gone for Fagerson because sitting here now at the end of the year, I just think he's had a really, really good 2024 and would be deserving of that selection. I think he's really kicked on as a player. He was somewhat of a surprise selection for the Lions in South Africa, and I thought he struggled on that tour personally, particularly when they started to come up against the Springboks. I think he's really moved on since then. I think his scrummaging has got better and I think his all-round play has got better. The other name is Tadhg Furlong, and spoiler alert, he is on my bench. The reason I haven't got him starting, even though I think there's a great chance that actually Furlong would be the player to start on the Lions tour in that first test, is just because sitting here right now, he's missed the autumn. I'm picking him because I think he will be fit in time, but I've given the edge to Fagerson, if that makes sense. Dowie Lake at hooker. Could have been Dan Sheehan, but I just think Dowie Lake, despite playing in a really poor Welsh team that haven't won a single game, I think he is a very good player. And also I think I've really been impressed with his leadership and the way in which he's kind of fronted up and led that Welsh team at times when they've been so poor and such a bad run of results, that I think he could be the starting hooker. I think it's probably between him and Dan Sheehan. Is it then Jamie George as the third hooker if they're taking 3 on the tour as a whole? I'll probably end up doing a different video where I pick my full squad. But it's maybe those 3, and I think it's Dowie Lake and Dan Sheehan who are vying at the moment to start. But that's my front row anyway. Let me know what you make of it. You could easily put forward an argument that it should be an all-Irish front row of Porter, Sheehan and Furlong. And it may well end up being that, but that's what I've gone for. Into the second rows. Maro Itoje and Joe McCarthy. I think Itoje starts. I know there's often a lot of discussion around Maro, and I've been someone previously, in fact, not, I think even this autumn, to be fair, where I was saying, do we need to see a bit more from Maro, or his performance is kind of inconsistent? The one thing I think for Itoje is in the biggest games, he consistently produces his best performances. So I think in big crunch test matches on a Lions tour, I think that's where you get the best out of Maro Itoje. And that's why I think, that's why I have him starting here, because he's a big game performer. The other thing actually to factor in here is he's one of the more experienced names in terms of having Lions test matches under his belt and winning for the Lions as well. In that he was on that tour in 2017 against New Zealand. I know they drew the series, but he was massive on that tour. So yeah, I would probably opt for Maro Itoje. Excuse me. Next up, Joe McCarthy. I found naming my other second row quite tricky here. A lot of people would say Tadhg Beirne. The reason I haven't got him in my second row is because I felt like it would be a bit too lightweight. I think you needed some muscle there. George Martin was another guy, but I don't think he's had a great autumn. I think he's been exposed a little bit about areas that he still needs to improve. I think he will be a brilliant international second row down the years, but has maybe been found out. McCarthy as well has fits and starts. He can give away quite a few penalties, but for me, it was him that I had the name inked in there. James Ryan could be another one that you might throw at me. And Ollie Chessum, possibly, as well. For me, I went for Joe McCarthy. So him and Maro Itoje in my second row. Into the back row. This is where Tadhg Beirne gets in. So I've named Tadhg Beirne. I think he's been absolutely immense. He deserves to be in the starting team. As I say, you could have him in the second row. I went back row just because I wanted someone with a bit more heft in the second row alongside Itoje. But Beirne at 6, he's absolutely exceptional. He's a good line-out option as well. Fairly straightforward. I've gone Jack Morgan at 7. Now, 7 is a position where there are so many options. You've got Rory Darge, you've got Josh van der Fleer, Ben Earl. I've gone Jack Morgan for similar reasons to Dowie Lake. I think he is an exceptionally good player who's been playing in a really poor Welsh team. I think put better parts around him, he will continue to excel. That's the reason for him, but frankly, you could say Van der Fleer and I couldn't really argue against it. You could say Earl, you could even throw in Tom Curry and Sam Underhill, you could throw in Rory Darge. Like, that back row selection is so competitive. There are going to be really good players that don't even get on the plane for the Lions. But I've got Jack Morgan starting at 7 for me and Caelan Doris at 8. I think he's been the standout number 8 between the nations available. Nominated for the World Men's 15s Player of the Year. He's been captaining Ireland. Easy selection for me at number 8, but would you go in a different direction? I suppose you've got a Matt Fagerson at Scotland. Would he be the closest there? Ben Earl again, someone else that you could name there. I've gone for Caelan Doris. So that is my pack. Porter, Lake, Fagerson front row. McCarthy, Itoje second row. Beirne, Morgan, Doris as my back row. I think that is a pretty good starting pack. I'll get on to my replacements at the end of the video, but that will also probably explain some of the selections as well, because obviously your bench replacements are critical. Let's get on to the backs. Sitting here right now, 9 and 10, I think, are arguably the toughest positions to pick. I went for Jamison Gibson-Park and for Finn Russell. So 9 first of all. I think it's going to be Gibson-Park. I think he's had a really good year. But I don't think there's that much option there for Farrell at the moment. I think Gibson-Park brings an understanding of the game plan that he will want to implement, so that's a plus. And I think he has been the best overall. Could have been Alex Mitchell, and Mitchell is on my bench. But again, he's been missing at the end of the year. He's missed the autumns, so it's Gibson-Park. And at fly half, this is a fascinating selection for the Lions, because in my opinion, the two, I suppose, front-running contenders at the moment are Finn Russell and Marcus Smith. Because you look at Ireland, it's been Crowley, Prendergast has come in, but he's such a young, inexperienced guy. It's been Frawley as well. It's not going to be any of the Welsh 10s, let's be honest. So is it Finn Russell and Marcus Smith that are vying for that shirt? But also, are they the sort of players that Andy Farrell will want running his team? In which case, maybe you bring into the discussion a Finn Smith or a George Ford or an Owen Farrell. That's where I think the discussion around the fly half position is really interesting, because I think you have the players in Marcus Smith and Finn Russell that are leading the contest at the moment that aren't necessarily the players I think Andy Farrell will want. So then in what other direction would he go? For this argument's sake, I've gone for Finn Russell. I think if you're basing it upon form and being fair, plus consistently being the 10 for his country, it is his shirt to lose at this moment in time. But will Andy Farrell go in a different direction? Keep an eye on that selection. Okay, Finn Russell, Jameson Gibson-Park, 9 and 10. Let's go into the centres. Bundy Aki and Hugh Jones for me. A lot of people will be saying Sione Tuipulotu, which I understand why. Do you know what? I've gone for Bundy Aki. I think Sione Tuipulotu is a more all-round player than him, but I just think Aki has had more... What's the best way to describe it? Game-changing moments for Ireland, maybe? Like more games for Ireland where I think he's been the best player on the park, where he will get you over the game line. And I know Tuipulotu gets you over the game line as well. I just think, I'm looking at it, I almost feel like I've got more body of evidence for Bundy Aki and the reasons I feel he should be the 12 than I do Sione Tuipulotu, which I know the Scotland fans, in fact, not just Scotland fans, loads of you will disagree with me there. That's just where I am right now with my 12 jersey. It could change in the Six Nations, but if the test match was tomorrow, I'm picking Bundy Aki and I'm picking Hugh Jones because I think he has had an exceptional year. I think Hugh Jones has been outstanding at 13. Again, you could go with the Gary Ringrose, but for me, Hugh Jones was the outstanding candidate. What you could also argue here is you don't break up the combinations. So if you're going with Bundy Aki, you might say, well, pick Gary Ringrose then, because then you've got the Irish centres. Or if you're going with Hugh Jones, pick Sione Tuipulotu then, because you've got the Scotland combination. That's a fair argument. I've decided to split them up. I've gone Aki and I've gone Jones. Into the back three, Darcy Graham, Manny Faye-Waboso, Hugo Keenan. Wingers for me was actually quite straightforward. I think Darcy Graham, I know he's had his injury issues. When we see him consistently, he is just brilliant. Such a live wire. Faye-Waboso, I don't think there's any athlete like him at the moment in terms of a back three player that would be available. I think he's brilliant in the air. I think he is exceptional with ball in hand. And then Hugo Keenan at 15. You could go George Furbank. If you were selecting French-based players, you'd go with a Blair Kinghorn, I suppose. I'm not going with French-based players. So therefore, I've gone with Hugo Keenan. I think that is a blockbuster dynamite back three. And just on the back three, because I know loads of people put Duhan van der Merwe in their team at the moment. For me, he doesn't even get on the plane, which might sound controversial. I honestly don't think he would be near my starting team, personally. I know he scores tries, often against England half the time. I just think there are much better wing options, much better all-round options than Duhan van der Merwe. All right, my bench, because this is important as well. To finish off the video, here's the bench replacements. I've mentioned it already, Dan Sheehan, replacement hooker. I think it's between him and Lake for the starting hooker positions. Tyg Furlong as well on the tight head side. Ellis Genge, loose head. You could go Schoeman in that position. But yeah, there's not bags of options, I don't think, in terms of a front row. Would any of you go differently to what I've got there? You could say Jamie George, maybe for his experience. You have him and Dan Sheehan as your options at hooker. But that's what I've gone for. I've then gone for Ollie Chessum because he covers the second row and he could be that big body, another line-out option like Tyg Byrne at 6. And then Ben Earl, likewise, because he can play 8. He can play across the back row, really. So explosive. What an awesome option to have coming off your bench. Alex Mitchell is my replacement 9. Could have been Thomas Williams there. I just think Mitchell... I think England... You saw how much England missed Mitchell this autumn. And he just got the edge there, even though it could have been Thomas Williams. Marcus Smith, replacement 10. If I was saying it's between him and Finn Russell, then I kind of had to go the way of Marcus Smith. You could also, at a stretch, have him play fullback if you got an injury there, if you really wanted to, and then Gary Ringrose covers the centres. I suppose the only area I'm possibly a little exposed there in the back line is the back 3, if you were to get an injury there, but that might just be where... Or the wings in particular, because I guess Marcus Smith could go to 15. Hugh Jones has played 15 before. I think that gives us enough balance overall in the team. That's my Lions Matchday 23 for the first test, picking today on the 11th of December 2024. There's a long way to go. The Six Nations will change this team, but how much will it change? That's my side at the moment. Comment section, head there. Tell me all the areas I got wrong, all the areas you disagree with. I'm sure there'll be plenty. Like the video as well. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I look forward to reading your comments. I'll see you in the next one.